Glenn Beck went from being a firebrand right-winger during the Bush and Obama years to falling out of the public eye rather quickly after he went hardcore anti-Trump during the primaries. So he was totally for Ted Cruz, didn't hide that at all, and when Trump won, he threw a fit and he nearly cried, and he said, I'm never going to vote for him, and I'm never going to support him. Well, guess what? Totally unsurprisingly, the vapid, soulless shock jock flipped.
Here's why I'm predicting a 2020 win. When I saw yesterday how the press was all reporting the same damn story that Donald Trump was calling MS-13 gang members, they left that out of the story, animals, and they were spinning it as if he was saying that about all immigrants, I'd had enough. I'd have enough. Media, if you can get me, Glenn Beck, to do this, and in case you're only listening to us on radio, I just donned a red Make America Great Again hat. If you can drive me to the point to where I say, you know what, I've had enough. I'll vote for him in 2020. Gladly, I'll vote for him in 2020. And not really even on his record, which we'll talk about here in a second, is pretty damn amazing. But if you can drive me to the point to where I'll wear one of these stupid red hats, I'm telling you, you're making a gigantic mistake, and I welcome it. I would just like to look at the president's record. Now, every president will say to you when he's running, I'm gonna make Jerusalem the home. Huh? Really? The home of the embassy? Really, are you? Because everybody says that and nobody does it. He did it. And I think that's going to go down as the biggest game changer possibly in my lifetime. It already is. It is changing the game in Iran. And there are riots in the streets now in Iran. Streets in Iran, in some towns, it looks like a war zone because the people have risen up. And that's going to continue to build. And when it does, this president is going to come out and say something directly to those people that we support them. And that's going to add fuel to the fire. And you might see a regime change and a collapse of the Islamic regime in Iran. And it will be 100% Donald Trump that made that responsible. 100%. You're going to see changes because of this. He kept that promise. A promise I said, he's not going to do that. Nobody's going to do that. He did. How about the president's coming up and saying, well, I know I can defeat ISIS. I know I can do it. I'll defeat ISIS. He did. And did you notice no one in the press even talked about it? All of a sudden, we're not talking about ISIS anymore. How come? Oh, I know. President Trump. That's why. How many people? Well, we're not going to be involved in these global agreements for global warming. Right, sure. I'm on record saying he will never do that because his daughter is a huge global warming person and he only listens to the family. Wrong, Glenn. Who else is doing that? Just that is enormous. Going to stop the TPP. Right, sure you are. Yes, he did. I'm going to bring North Korea to the table. Gee, looks like that's happening. Give everybody a tax cut. I don't like the tax cut. I think he could have gone a lot further, but that's not even his job.
Oh, make it stop. Make it stop, man. Make it stop. Okay. So there was about a month where the hashtag resistance went nuts and teamed up with Glenn Beck and acted like he's the sane person on the right because he's anti-Trump. And I remember Glenn Beck and Samantha Bee joyously acting like they're allies now. Oh my goodness, they're allies. And the entire time I was warning everybody, don't do it. Why would you do it? Because Glenn Beck made crystal clear from early on he wasn't against Trump for any substantive reasons. In fact, he was for everything that's odious about Donald Trump. All of the insane far-right policies he supported. But the only thing he didn't like about Trump was, well, number one, his guy lost. Ted Cruz lost. And on that alone, you should know, like, why would I trust this guy? Oh, he wasn't for the buffoon Donald Trump, but he was for the authoritarian, theocrat, corporatist warmonger that is Ted Cruz. The guy who doesn't have a single honest bone in his body. He's disingenuous and smug to his core. This guy totally supported him, so why would you team up with him to be against Trump? Because obviously he's not against Trump for substantive reasons. And that's the point, he wasn't. He didn't like how Trump, hey, you're a little too mean to people on Twitter. Why don't you try to cut the social safety net and wage endless war and destroy our regulatory system? Why don't you do that with a smile and flowery words on Twitter? So that was his objection to Trump from the beginning. And I was warning everybody, how the fuck could you team up with a guy like this? But they did. They teamed up with him. And then now, of course, it comes back to bite them in the ass because look at him. So, and the thing that's so amazing about Glenn Beck is literally everything he said there are the exact reasons why Trump is like the worst. But he's using the worst things about him to try to pretend like, hey, no, this is why he's the best. So let's break it down. First of all, the MS-13 comments. This is more of the disingenuous bullshit that I was talking about when I covered that story. I listened to that clip. I played it for you guys twice. My interpretation of that clip is very simple. It's a Rorschach test. The way everything was framed and the way it was worded, the person talking to Trump brings up MS-13, so it's conceivable that when Trump calls them animals, he is referring to MS-13. But at the same time, Trump used language. Here, I'll tell you exactly what he said. Trump said, quote, "We have people coming in. We're taking people out. You wouldn't believe how bad these people are. These people are not people, they're animals." So he could have, when she said MS-13, he could have said, "We have people coming in," meaning not MS-13, but just the people coming in. They're animals. So the left's interpretation is, oh my God, he's talking about all undocumented immigrants. The right's interpretation is, he's talking just about MS-13. Don't be disingenuous. But I think anybody who has a strong opinion on this is being disingenuous because it's like, no, he could have easily meant whatever the opposite is of what you think he meant. So there you go, Glenn Beck. I'm so sure he only meant MS-13. Maybe, but it's also a reasonable interpretation that he meant all undocumented immigrants. So this is the straw that broke the camel's back for him. This is the straw because, oh my God, the media is so bad. I agree the media is bad, but this is the thing that made you finally go, you know what? I was against the guy completely. Now I flip to being in favor of him. Then he goes through the record. Oh boy. When he moved the embassy to Jerusalem. So in other words, the move that is in part responsible for sparking peaceful protests from Palestinians that led to Israeli snipers killing people, killing women, killing children, killing peaceful protesters. The worst that any Palestinians did was burn some tires and threw some rocks or use slingshots, and they got massacred. Over 60 Palestinians massacred, 2,000 injured, nearly 2,000 injured. And Glenn Beck thinks it's awesome. Why does he think it's awesome? Because Donald Trump is fulfilling biblical prophecy. Now, Glenn Beck is a Mormon, but he is so close with all these fundamentalist Christians like John Hagee. He loves these guys. Robert Jeffers. So he loves the fact that Trump is doing the bidding of fundamentalist Christians. He loves the fact that he's doing the bidding of ultra-extremist Zionists and Orthodox Jews. He loves that this is a policy which serves the far-right fundamentalists. So it creates devastation, it creates war, it creates needless deaths, it creates conflict, it's a giant fuck you to Palestinians, and the idea is now you're never going to get your own state. But he loves it because fuck Palestinians and their human rights. I love the far-right fundamentalists. It's all Israel's. So one of the worst things about Trump, he's like, that's why I love him. Defeating ISIS, please, my ass cheeks. No mention of the Syrian government, no mention of the Kurds, no mention of the Shia militias, no mention of Hezbollah, none of it. None of it. And so people on the ground have been fighting ISIS, and in fact, we've bombed the people fighting ISIS when we bombed the Syrian government twice, but somehow we still get credit. Wow, look at how that works. The Paris Climate Agreement pullout, again, one of the worst things he did. The Paris Climate Agreement should be much stronger to fight back against climate change. It's a weak agreement in the first place, and we're the only country that pulled out of it. Everybody else is in it. So we're fucking over the earth. He loves it. He fucking loves it because he's a dumbass. Remember, he's an Agenda 21 conspiracy nut too. And then he stopped the TPP. Well, first of all, no, he didn't, because he's been, in the renegotiation of NAFTA, he's been slipping the provisions of the TPP right back into it. Now, furthermore, there were just articles recently about how Trump is like, hey, maybe we jump back into the TPP. Why? Because he realized, it's a regional domination issue. So the U.S. wants to dominate and not have China get more control. China wants more control. So Trump was against TPP until now he's being told by elites, like, no, you should really jump back in it so that China doesn't dominate the region. And so he's like, oh, okay, maybe we jump back in. So he doesn't have a principled stand on this shit. Come on, man. How stupid can you be? And furthermore, Glenn Beck was a guy who was always in favor of free trade. Always, always, always. Under the Bush administration, 100% for free trade. Every time they signed a free trade agreement, Glenn Beck loved it. So what happened? I thought you were Mr., right-wing libertarian economics. Oh, let's do all the free trade agreements. But now, what? All of a sudden you're against TPP? That's a fucking first. Shock. Maybe Glenn Beck is really a vapid, soulless shock jock cretin who only wants recognition. And then he brings up North Korea. Now, by the way, those talks all but fell through. There are reports now that Kim Jong-un pulled out of it. Why? Because he was, again, the idea that he's going to actually give up nukes? Laughable. Gaddafi gave up nukes, and now Gaddafi's dead. So, what? He's going to trust the U.S. when we say, hey, give us your nukes and you'll be good. Of course he's not going to give up his nukes. He'll make some sort of concession, but will the U.S. accept whatever concession he makes? Okay, here, take one test site. Whatever the concession is, I don't know, but will Trump accept it? I hope he accepts it. But it looks like the talks might fall through now. So, and by the way, no credit to the South Korean president, who's been absolutely phenomenal and been a genius in dealing with this. There's been articles about how he knows what he's doing and he's pro-peace, but he's also stroking Trump's ego to make Trump feel like he's responsible for all the good that's happening. So you got the South Korean president, the new South Korean president. The old one was impeached over corruption. The new one comes in, he's a peace candidate. And he's trying to do all the right things, and he gets no credit, of course, because Glenn Beck's a fucking myopic idiot who doesn't know his ass from his elbow. And then finally, tax cuts, of course. There you go. So the tax bill where 83% of the benefits went to the top 1%. The tax bill where they cut the corporate tax rate from 35% to 21% at a time when corporations are already paying a historically low percentage of the tax burden. The tax bill that gutted the estate tax. So the tax bill that was massively biased in favor of the elites raises taxes on everybody making $75,000 a year or less over a 10-year period. That tax bill, which, by the way, had what, about a 22% favorability rating? Glenn Beck's like, that's the reason why Trump is good. Now, I would have gone further. In other words, he would have made the bill even shittier. But, man, how great is this? So, listen, there's a lesson in this. Don't, for partisan, tribalist bullshit reasons, don't make alliances with scumbags and cretins. Because that's what Glenn Beck is. And if this doesn't prove it to you, nothing will. The Blaze is on the verge of going totally under. In fact, there were talks about Ben Shapiro was in talks to maybe buy the Blaze, and Glenn Beck has been hemorrhaging money. He was hemorrhaging money even before he came out full anti-Trump. Terrible business model, overspent, and really not that popular. He wasn't that popular even before he went anti-Trump. Now he's really, he pissed off at least half of the people who listen to him. More than that, probably, because Trump has like 85% approval rating among Republicans. So this also could be viewed as perhaps a cynical business move of like, fuck, man, we're so hopeless. We got a bunch of establishment pats on the back, and the New York Times did a glowing profile back when he turned anti-Trump. But now, okay, just do another switcheroo and try to get back your core audience who you pissed off. You were hemorrhaging money. Now you got, now I'm Mr. Pro-Trump because maybe that'll save my business. So that's the other angle to this as well, is that this could be just a cynical ploy for business reasons because his business is in a hell of a lot of trouble.